Is Dragonkin The Banished the next big ARPG, or is it a game that stumbles out of the gate? By the end, you'll find out whether it's worth playing or if you should steer clear. The game starts off on a rough note. The opening cutscene and prologue suffer from audio stutters, with lines repeating and breaking immersion. This technical issue is noticeable right from the start, setting a negative tone for what's to come. Then comes a heavy lore dump. Dragonkin The Banished throws a ton of story at you, detailing the corruption of dragons and the battle between heroes. The problem? It's all thrown at you too quickly, making it hard to care about the world or characters. To make matters worse, the prologue hands you a max-level, overpowered character. While this might sound fun, it removes any sense of challenge or progression. Enemies fall instantly, and there's no meaningful loot or rewards. The entire sequence feels like a wasted opportunity. Lastly, the prologue is completely linear. There's no room for exploration or meaningful choices. The combat feels repetitive, and since there's no real challenge, it ends up feeling like a chore rather than an exciting introduction. The demo raises some red flags, mainly because it skips character progression. Instead of starting from scratch and leveling up, you're given pre-made level 35 characters. Since ARPGs thrive on the feeling of growth and progression, this choice makes it difficult to judge how satisfying the full game will be. Combat feels unpolished. Skills don't always work as intended. For example, the Lancer's charge ability can sometimes go through enemies or randomly get interrupted. This lack of responsiveness makes battles more frustrating than fun. The core gameplay loop involves dungeon crawling, monster slaying, and boss fights. Unfortunately, the lack of variety makes it feel repetitive quickly. The same few dungeon layouts repeat, and enemies don't offer much of a challenge, making progression feel stale. The demo features 3 pre-made characters: the Lancer, Spellcaster, and Barbarian. Each has a different playstyle, but they're not equally enjoyable. One standout feature is the wormling companion system. This unique mechanic allows players to link their abilities with the wormling's attacks, creating interesting synergies. For example, using Whirlwind might trigger a fire breath attack from the wormling. While this system adds depth, it also feels overwhelming, especially for new players. Loot is a huge part of any ARPG, but here it feels uninspired. Items come in different rarities: blue, green, orange. But most upgrades feel like minor stat boosts rather than exciting power spikes. Because of this, gearing up doesn't feel very rewarding. Crafting is another weak point. The system feels like busy work rather than meaningful customization. You pick materials, press a button, and get an item. There's little strategy or depth to it. The ancestral grid system is the game's way of customizing skills. Players link modifiers, represented by symbols, to enhance their abilities. While this has potential, it's hard to read and overly complex. Instead of planning strategic builds, players often just move pieces around until they turn green, which signals activation. The symbiosis mechanic ties into this by requiring at least 8 linked modifiers to unlock stronger abilities. While rewarding, the system feels tedious and overly complicated, making it more of a chore than an engaging feature. Boss fights should be a highlight in an ARPG, but here they feel underwhelming. Dragons, one of the main selling points of the game, fall too quickly and don't require much strategy to defeat. Instead of feeling like epic encounters, they feel more like loot piñatas. Dungeons introduce mechanics like fireballs, exploding blood orbs, and spinning lightning bolts. While they add some variety, they don't significantly change how the game plays. The dungeon experience ends up feeling repetitive rather than dynamic. The demo has several technical problems. Stuttering, audio glitches, and tooltip errors are common, making the game feel unpolished. Additionally, the game constantly triggers unnecessary notifications whenever you enter an area, breaking immersion and becoming an annoyance. Dragonkin The Banished has some interesting ideas, particularly with its wormling companion system and skill synergies. However, these positives are overshadowed by poor execution, repetitive gameplay, and technical issues. One of the biggest problems is the lack of engagement. The demo fails to hook players, largely due to its uninspired loot, lack of character progression, and clunky combat. If an ARPG can't make the grind feel satisfying, it's a major problem. Right now, Dragonkin The Banished does not feel like a game worth recommending. While there's potential, the current state of the demo doesn't inspire confidence. If the full release improves progression, combat, and overall polish, then it might be worth revisiting. But as it stands, it's a tough sell for ARPG fans. That wraps up the review of Dragonkin The Banished. Does this game interest you? Or do the flaws make you want to skip it? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth game reviews. Thanks for watching. Guild Wars 2 has come a long way, evolving with new expansions, balance updates, and fresh content. But is it still worth your time? Whether you're a returning player or considering jumping in for the first time, there's a lot to explore. If you want to see how the game holds up today, click the link and check it out.